Hey guys, back again with another 32nd scale aircraft kit. This week we'll be looking at Revell's 1/32nd scale P-51D early model. So let's open her on up and take a look. So, one thing I noticed right away, especially in comparison to the Hasegawa Mustang we did a while back, is the amount of internal detailing that's present on this kit. Significantly higher. Watch. Revell version gives you a lot more build up for the structural components in the wings, the gun bays, the landing gear bays, and the cockpit. I mean, it's almost night and day difference. As you can see here with a lot of the structure parts for the landing gear, as well as some of the cockpit details. Continuing on, you can see more of what I mean here with these two cockpit sidewalls. Now, while the detailing is a little on the bulbous and slightly over scale, they do include it, whereas the Hasegawa version really did not. So that is a big plus to the Revell, especially in comparison. Continuing on, we have obviously our cockpit. Again, a lot higher degree of detailing. Also on this sprue, we have some of our control surfaces as well as our rudder, some of the ailerons, and so forth. Just making sure it didn't drop more parts. Next up, we've got our main canopy piece. Again, much can be said here, inferred. One thing I did notice is that the Revell kit does have a little more pronounced a lip on the edge of the frame versus the glass. So that will make masking a little bit easier. It's subtle, but it's there. So in this scale, you'd think it might make a difference, but overall, it really doesn't make that big a difference. So continuing on, we got the rest of our clear parts for the gun sight, some of the various lights, as well as our front windscreen. Again, this is one of those things I wish you could really tell just how much of a lip there is, but you'll just have to take my word for it. Moving on to our wing section, again, gives you a sense of the size. Now, one thing I immediately also noticed in comparison between this and the Hasegawa, where the Hasegawa had pretty uniformly smooth texture to the surface, this has almost rough, grainy type of texture. I'm not sure how well it'll show up on camera. Given that most of the options in this kit are given as olive drab birds, it shouldn't be as big an issue. However, if you want to do a natural metal Mustang, this could prove problematic. So I'm interested to see how it'll look after it gets a coat of primer on it. Hopefully it will smooth out nicely. However, I would say be prepared if you are going to do a natural metal finish with this one to give it a once-over with some 2000 grit just to make sure it's nice and smooth. Because otherwise, that's really going to mar the finish. It's still amazes me, even this day and age, that Revell is still putting that branding mark on their kits. Don't know why. Here, as we move on now to the underwing, much the same. Obviously, they did cut out the landing gear bays to be built up as separate components. So that's a nice choice there. Moving on, next up we've got our sprue containing our underwing ordnance as well as our main wheels. They do include both styles of drop tanks, so that is a nice inclusion, as well as a single 500-pound bomb. Continuing on, we now get to the back end of the aircraft, as well as a few more odds and end parts and some cockpit components. Again, surface has similar sort of texture to the wings, albeit on this one it's not as pronounced, so it could entirely be that I just got a bad kit, but that is something to be aware of. As we look at the front dash, again, most of the detailing is done with a decal. However, thankfully, a lot of the surface is there, albeit without gauges, so they do give you a little more of options there in compared to some of their previous options. And much as I said with the sidewalls, some of the detailing is a little bulbous and overscale, but the fact that they're taking time to include it is a marked improvement in comparison to some of their older kits. Next up, we have our main fuselage halves. Again, a lot of the detailing is left to be built up onto it. One thing you don't get with this that you do get with the Hasegawa is the engine. However, it's more often than not you're going to have it closed up. You don't really need it, and if you are going to be doing it with the engine being worked on, more often than not, you're going to splurge for the aftermarket resin one engine that will obviously look significantly better. But I digress. Moving on, for the rest of the sprue, we got our odds and end details, our main gear, more of the cockpit detailing. They really went all out in the cockpit, as we'll see once we get into the instruction sheet. Overall, much the same level of detailing. Everything's there, just it could be that much crisper and better in scale. Last up, we've got our main prop, as well as the rest of the cockpit build-up, flaps, exhaust stack, as well as our gun ports. Now, this is where I'd say they've kind of failed, as the gun openings are a mismatch of sizes, so I would say it might be worth it just to drill those out and replace them with some metal tube. But that's just me. Again, spinner and various other little odds and end parts. Okay, let's get these back in and we'll move on to our decal options. So the kit comes with a couple different options for paint it, as well as walkways, decals, insignias, and individual unit and squadron markings. Full set of stencils. One thing, the blacks on this sheet just seem slightly off, like a little too blue. Again, I'm not sure if this is just my copy, I got a bum one, or what, but most of the blacks seem just like that much off. Like they added just slight too much blue to it, giving it a slight gray-blue toning. Thankfully, though, whites and the rest of the colors are in good register, just those blacks are hair off. Now, moving on to the instruction sheet. This is where we can very clearly see the difference between this kit and the Hasegawa. Right away, there's far more detailing going in. Far more. This is definitely a kit that will take a little while to build. And to be perfectly honest, I would say, given the amount of structural detail that's going into this, I would say this would be a perfect bed for someone to do a super detailed job. Go in, photo etch, resin, the works. Probably the most complicated area on this kit, though, is that cockpit. So that's where you're going to probably want to spend a lot of time and take it slow. They do give you a lot of different options showing how to where everything needs to go. Again, there's a lot of detail packed into this kit. I mean, I could probably spend days working just playing with the different options, going between reference and the kit. So yeah, this is definitely a significantly more complicated build than the Hasegawa. Now, as I said, we've got several different options. 3 in total, 1 natural metal, 2 olive drab. Then, yeah. So, what are my thoughts on this kit? Well, thus far, we've looked at 3 different versions of Mustangs in this scale. Albeit 1 was a B and 2 have been Ds. Directly comparing Revell to between this D and B we looked at earlier, there's practically no comparison. The level of detailing in this thing compared to the B is night and day. I mean, absolute night and day. Compared to the Hasegawa, though, this is still much better. Don't get me wrong. And if you can get the Hasegawa for the right price, though, that's where things get complicated. Now, I have not built or looked at the Tamiya or the Zerkamura, so I cannot, definitively say who's got the best Mustang. However, for both the Zerkamura and the Tamiya, both those kits are pushing almost $200 retail. This is about $50. Given the amount of detail you get out of the box, that alone, I would say, should, in general, make the decision for you. If you're deciding to go super detail, between this one and the Hasegawa, which we have looked at, if you're going to go super detail, this is the kit you want to get. If you're just doing a simple build, Hasegawa, if you can get it in that $30 price range. Anything more than that, you're better off going with this. Even if you're just doing a simple build, this would be more worth it for your money. So that was a look at Revell's 1/32 scale P-51D Early type. Fantastic kit. I do hope this is the direction that Revell is choosing to go moving forward with their kit designs. As compared to a lot of their earlier works, this isn't just them recycling some kit from the 70s. This is new technology, and it definitely shows. So, until next time.